Hey, good evening, everybody. It is Thursday night, and I'm jumping on tonight to rebroadcast my live from last week, as we had went live last Friday night, but ended up having some video problems. And so we're hoping tonight that all is smooth and running well. And if you missed it, then you get to catch it now. If you had watched and joined last week while I was live, then you can catch it in better format tonight, at least. And so, welcome. I appreciate you watching, and we're going to get to some interesting topics and things tonight. The title today is uh, The Pyramids of Giza, Dire Circumstances, and Can Christians Vote Liberal? And so we're going to have some fun talking about some of these things. And they're very relative right now as we are very much on the cusp of an election in Canada and hoping for positive change. So, hi, everybody. Appreciate you commenting. My mumsy, Rachel, Diana, John, you guys are always faithful. Great to see you guys on there. So enjoy the broadcast tonight. I'd like to also say if you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, I am going to post that in the comments right at the end of this broadcast, and I'd appreciate you subscribing. I am on the quest for 30 subscribers. And so if you can help me get to 30 subscribers, I would appreciate it. And so let's get to some content tonight. And there's some things that I found interesting. And so I always like to share some of the things that interest me and thinking that they might interest you as well, because there's so many crazy things going on in the world today. And you've heard me say that in the next 5 years, our world is going to change very rapidly. And so, because of massive technology advancements, because of spiritual things that are taking place, so many things that we could contribute as factors to this, but technology being a huge one. And of course, the spiritual is ramping up. And so, there is so much going on. Jesus is getting ready to come back. And so this is a pretty interesting time to be alive. And so I'm talking first about the pyramids of Giza because I found this interesting. This came out a couple weeks ago and was making a lot of headlines. And I thought this was very, very interesting. And so what they did is somebody with new technology did a scan of one of the main pyramids of the Giza pyramids, and with this radar technology from space, they did this scan over the pyramid and said that underneath the pyramid there is these columns that go down like a mile deep, up to 2 kilometers deep. And underneath these columns of the pyramid of Giza are these massive square cubic rooms, and they don't know what they are. And there's apparently coils going down these columns, which I can show you a picture of here right now. This is what they say it kind of looks like. And so you see the spirals that are going down the columns there. And uh, some people have theories that this might have been actually some sort of power station, an ancient power plant. And they also are using the theory of an inventor by the name of Tesla. I can't remember his first name right off the top of my head right now, but he had apparently invented some sort of power station that could pull energy with columns or with rotating spring-like figures, as you see, like there. And so people are theorizing that that might have been an ancient power plant, which is very interesting. But some people even say there's so much under there and so big that it could be an underground city. And so, one thing for sure, if this is genuine and authentic, then it changes everything we've ever known or thought about the Giza pyramids. And also, just very interesting to consider is that the Giza pyramids were already very much a mystery where we don't know how ancient people built things of such uh, significant technology. The stones that they used were millions, millions of stones that they had brought in from miles away, some of them up to over 500 miles away. And these stones were weighing 2.5 to 15 tons themselves. And then these stones, of course, were fashioned at such a level that was supposed to be done with hammer and chisel at that time. Maybe it was. I don't know. I wasn't there, but this is what people have tried to say. But yet, at the same time, are saying that we could only do some of this kind of cutting and work now using the technology that we have today and lasers. And then there's still some things that they just don't understand. And they were built amazingly true north, and apparently, there's something to do with Orion's belt as well, where they're pointing to Orion's belt. There's just a lot of things that went into it. And so I found this clip. Good old Glenn Beck here. I enjoy listening to him. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about this.
They took this space-based technology and they pointed it to the pyramids to see what was at the base of the pyramids. And not only did they find things at the base of the pyramids, they found things under the Great Pyramids of Giza that, if it's real, it just changes absolutely everything. Everything. So they are using synthetic aperture radar, SAR. And it can see through the dirt and stone, and it bounces signals off of things underground and listens for tiny vibrations. What they found is huge hidden structures deep beneath the pyramid. Now, let me give you what they think they found. 5 huge rooms or buildings near the pyramid's base, underground, linked by paths with slanted roofs and layers inside of the pyramids, and then tunnels that go down and connect the pyramids. Okay. Then they found 8 really large tube-like holes. They're like wells that go down, and they're kind of deep. They're 600 meters deep. The hole, there's 5 of them. That's half a mile. 600 meters deep.
All right. So kind of cut off there, a funny spot, but that's just crazy stuff, right? And so I always enjoy listening to Glenn Beck, and I got one more clip from him that we'll get to tonight as well, and right away here, actually. And for the next part of this is dire circumstances. Now, I could go on a tyrant about or a rant there where I could say there's a lot of dire circumstances in many different places, but this one was very interesting. And again, with everything that's going on in the last 5 years, you know, the Bible talked about in the last days that it would be like the days of Noah. And there's so many things that I've been teaching from that scripture and relating it to some of the things that we're seeing or some of the things that we're on the cusp of now in these last days. And so dire circumstances, with all this stuff going on with technology, all these amazing advancements, everything that's going on in government, you know, there's such a shakeup in the world. What else can you add? What else would surprise you? Well, cue the dire.
Oh my gosh, I want one.
Yeah, no, you don't.
No, I want one.
No, you really
Look how
don't.
cute they are. Oh my gosh, I want one.
Oh, they're so cute, aren't they?
And they're a little loud. Forget it. I'm bringing it back to the pound.
You know, you want to get up in the middle of the night and hear, oh, no, no. So they retrieved the DNA from fossils of dire wolves 13,000 years ago. They were over. Then they discovered additional DNA, and they edited 20 genes of gray wolves and then put the dire wolf in the gray wolf, and we now have the new and improved dire wolf.
Isn't that crazy? Like, hello, Jurassic Park. This is what happened in the movie of Jurassic Park. Very similar, where they extracted DNA from mosquitoes that were in those little amber bulbs and brought back dinosaurs. Now, dire wolves are a species that have been extinct for thousands of years. Apparently, were made famous from this TV series Game of Thrones, which I tried to watch, and it was very rank, so we did not watch that. But I don't know if I've seen the wolf in there or not, but apparently there's dire wolves in that show anyway. Do not recommend. And so anyway, they've brought them back, and I think they're actually bigger than that we've seen in that video right there. And apparently, what is next now is the dodo bird, and also coming soon, the woolly mammoth. Who would have thought that you would be living in a day where some of these things are coming back? But they're also banking species with this technology where they're able to store these genes and DNA. And so that as many species today are threatened, they'll have them banked so that they could potentially bring them back if necessary. So I want to move on again as we're just talking a little bit about technology, and then we're going to get into politics. I had came across this video and I found it so interesting as Elon Musk was on Ted Cruz podcast, and one of the things Ted Cruz was asking him was, as we advance in robotics and artificial intelligence, what are the chances and how long would it take in a time period wise if AI and robotics decided they were going to take over the world? Is that a possibility? And he gave a statistic for what the possibility was and what the time frame would be. And if that stuff scares you, you'll find that pretty scary. But don't worry about it because he's optimistic, right? Okay, that's what he says. So listen to this because this is pretty
How real
interesting.
is the prospect of killer robots annihilating humanity?
20% likely, maybe
Wow.
10%,
On what time frame?
5 to 10 years.
So soon, like you see a world where that's possible.
Yeah, but I mean, you could look at it like the glass is 80 to 90% full, meaning like 80% likely will have extreme prosperity for all.
Now, I guess my view, we're in a race to win AI. We're in a race with China. And my view is if they're going to be killer robots, I'd rather they be American killer robots than Chinese. How likely are we winning right now? Is America winning right now? And how likely is America to win the race for AI vis-a-vis China or anyone else?
For the next few years, I think America is likely to win. Then it will be a function of who controls the AI chip fabrication. The factories that make the AI chips, who controls them?
All right. So he gives you a percentage of what the possibility is in the next 5 to 10 years that AI and robotics could just end up viewing mankind as the enemy. But don't worry, he's optimistic that life will actually be a lot just better for everybody. So this is interesting stuff because this is the day that we're living in where these advancements are happening so rapidly. Like the Bible talked about in the book of Daniel, that in the last days there would be advanced technology. Have we ever been seeing that going on right now? And so he talks about how America is winning the AI race right now. And so also humanoid robots are coming very soon. But right now, America is winning the AI race. It's very close. And I see different people when they talk about it. It seems like that kind of goes back and forth. But I know that they are making some huge investments right now in the US under Trump. One of them was like a $500 billion investment by one company that they're investing in artificial intelligence, trying to win that race. It's been said that this race was bigger than the race is bigger than the race to the nuclear bomb with Oppenheimer. That this is the even more serious race because of the kind of consequences that can come who holds this technology. And so China will, if even the US is leading in the next few years, China is right behind. But also he said there that it comes down to whoever is controlling the microchips. Now, Taiwan is the biggest producer of microchips by far. And that's been a hot topic in the news. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't, how Taiwan is very much threatened by a Chinese takeover. America has tried to prop them up by sending them money so that they have different ideas to prop up their defense. It's not an easy takeover because of the way that it's located, but it is possible for China to do. And people speculate that by 2027, we have early announcements of things like this now, and that's just kind of the day that we live in. We can just people are telling us when the wars are coming, but that by 2027, China might try to take over Taiwan, and then all of a sudden, China controls all of these advanced microchips that are in our cell phones and all of these things. And so I know that the U.S. wants to start doing more production in the states to try to probably offset that some, but at the same time, does the U.S. decide that they're willing to go to war to defend Taiwan? Does the world defend that because of what is at stake? That China having artificial intelligence, and then controlling the monopoly really on advanced microchips. That's a really big deal. Okay, so let's move on to some politics here in Canada. And Canadian politics are a hot topic right now. Why? Because we are on the cusp of an election. Hallelujah. Because we've been waiting for an election for a long time. And I'm glad that that time has come. And the 28th of this month, Canadians are going to the polls to decide our next government and our next prime minister. Now, obviously, right now we have Mark Carney, who has kind of come in as a substitute prime minister. And I'm not too crazy about the way that system works, that he is automatically a prime minister just because ours resigned and the party selected their new leader. And so he gets to be prime minister. On one hand, it makes a little bit of sense, but at the same time, I do not like that we had to wait for an election. I think in that case, there should be a snap election called. And anyway, it wasn't too long. And here we are after our government being prorogued by the Liberals at critical times when Trump is threatening Canada with tariffs that are really threatening to hurt our economy. And really, it's just a real shakeup in the world. I'm a Trump guy, but I'm a Canadian, and I care very much about how these things are affecting Canada. And just because I like Trump doesn't mean that I like tariffs being put on our nation or on Canada. I like Trump because I like a lot of the things that he's doing, but he is America first. That is his motto, and that is what he is pursuing. And so what he's doing, he believes that it's good for America, that these tariffs will be good for America. And there's a lot of back and forth on that from different economists and different people that really live in that world. But at the same time, even in both parties, people have different viewpoints on if that's going to be good or not. But time will tell, and there's no doubt that Trump is a big believer in tariffs. And so we are going to see again how Canada is affected by these things and what it could do. One of the things I've considered, because people talk about so much about we'll never be the 51st state and all of that, when that discussion was really a hotter topic now, but it's kind of died off a bit. If Canada gets in a place that they're financially just be getting crippled if they don't do something, I would say, and I'd be curious just to know what you guys think, I would much rather join the US in some sort of at least economic union. Maybe that we don't have to become the 51st state, but some sort of economic union. I'd much rather do that than join the European Union. If it ever comes to that point that those are the only two options on the table. I think the consensus of Canadians would choose that as well. But yet we have Mark Carney, who is our current prime minister, who was what is the governor of the Bank of England for many, many years. And so I don't know. To me, it feels like this guy just came right out of Europe into Canada to be the current sitting prime minister. We didn't vote for him, but there he is. And so we just finally said goodbye to Justin Trudeau. You remember this guy? And for a long time, we've been waiting for this change to come. But as this change has come, now we have Mark Carney. Here was a little video I put out earlier in case you missed it.
Only two things scare me, and one is nuclear war.
What's the other?
Excuse me?
What's the other thing that scares you?
Carnies.
What?
Circus folk. Nomads, you know. Smell like cabbage. Small hands.
So as we are living now in this Carney era and dealing with Carney as our prime minister, will he stay on in the next election? I do not know. I hope not. Okay. So here is where our next point is can a Christian vote liberal? Can a Christian vote liberal? And let me just try to maybe rephrase that question a little bit and say it like this. Can a Christian do something really stupid? And then the obvious answer to that question is a yes. Obviously, just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that you can't do something that is really stupid, even when there might be consequences that come for the country. And so obviously my position on that is a ridiculous place to put your vote as a believer, as I say, as a Canadian in general, but as a believer, after almost the last decade of a liberal government wreaking havoc on Canada, limiting our freedoms, hurting our economy, and on it goes. And now people, just because there's a different face on the party, apparently the polls have brought up the liberals. I don't believe the polls, but I don't doubt that they've got a big boost since the departure of Justin Trudeau. And people don't know much about this Carney guy. And so all of a sudden he's got the edge where he was able to step in as prime minister, which is a liberal tactic, or a political tactic, I should say, because now Canadians view him as their prime minister. Even though they didn't vote for him, they have these months where they get to see him as prime minister, and there's something commanding about that, where people start thinking, okay, this is our prime minister, or we're used to him being there, and so it makes it that much more likely or easier for them to vote for him. But here is Pierre Poilievre, who is the most likely next in line to be prime minister, or vice versa, however you want to look at that. I'm going to say Carney next in line because that's the way I'm hoping it will go. And so Pierre Poilievre is a guy that I've been really just kind of following for a lot of years before a lot of people even knew who he was, and just reaching out to him myself on through Messenger and things like that. Like, you can't do that anymore, but I, and just funny story is how we got directions from Pierre Poilievre just a little over a year ago. Oh yeah, we were getting directions. We are trying to find out where we would go to meet with Pierre Poilievre for a questioning thing, and this was at last year's not last year's, the year before last, ministry breakfast or prayer breakfast for Canada. And so we didn't know where to go to get to this building where we're supposed to meet Pierre Poilievre and be able to hear him answer questions and take questions. And who do we end up seeing in the lobby as we're heading out of one building to go find where this building is? This Pierre Poilievre and his staff. And so we ended up getting directions from Pierre Poilievre how to find the place where Pierre Poilievre is going to be. And anyway, that was just a funny story. But Pierre Poilievre is somebody I've been following for a long time. I think he's highly intelligent. I think he'll make a great prime minister. I think economically, very sound. I think he carries an element of respect, intelligence, backbone, that he'll be able to stand up for Canada. And that's what people are saying right now, that Carney's the man to stand up to Trump. Well, if you want to listen to what Trump said, even Trump himself said, I'd rather have Carney because liberals are easier to deal with. So, if you want to take Trump's words for it, that's what he said. And now some people think that Trump was maybe doing a favor to the conservatives there, and maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But I don't doubt that he's true, that it's easier to deal with, a liberal government. He's usually used to dealing with Justin Trudeau, and so you know, Trump is a monster to deal with. And now we need somebody strong that's going to be in that setting in office to deal with him. Now, let me say this. Can a Christian vote for the Liberal Party? Well, let's say this, that to my understanding, you cannot even be a sitting member of parliament for the Liberal Party. They will not accept you in to be a representative of the Liberal Party if you are not pro choice. So you cannot be a pro life person and be a representation of the Liberal Party. Now, to me, when we think of where a Christian should be voting, that's enough for me because this is a huge issue to me. I think abortion is maybe the greatest atrocity of our time, and we're dealing with lives being lost. It's not a political issue. It's a moral issue. At the very least, it's a moral issue. It's a humanity issue where these are lives that we're talking about that are being lost, and something that Christians have just become too accepting of. And in Canada, we have no abortion regulations, no laws. And so I was quite disappointed in last week to hear Pierre Poilievre get up and say that under his administration, that if he's prime minister, there will be no abortion laws passed. And I'm going to talk about this for a minute. I'm voting conservative this time still, and I'll give you my reasonings why. And I still think Pierre Poilievre would be a good prime minister. I do not like that at all. I'm not on the same thinking with him at all, and I hate that he said that. I also think it was a dumb move politically. This is where you see where time and time again, you get somebody in who's supposed to be a strong conservative until they get on the campaign trail. And I don't know who these advisors are that surround these candidates, but they need new ones because you see this. They're supposed to be strong conservatives, and they run their campaign trying to uh, cave in to liberal idea. Oh, don't worry, we're not as conservative as you think. And what happens is they start losing their base many times, and people just become disappointed with them. Now, I'm hoping that if Pierre Poilievre gets in, that's something that will change because we don't have any laws in Canada regulating abortion. So you can have an abortion because you don't like the sex of your baby and you wanted a boy and not a girl, but now you found out you're going to have a boy, and so you can just abort and no limits to my understanding on late term abortion, all of these things, these just awful things that we have no laws. Like, wouldn't you say that people probably that even believe in abortion as it being a choice, that they would be open to actually talking, well, maybe we should at least have a discussion about some sort of regulations of when this is acceptable. But this is one thing that we need to recognize. Believers recognize that this is the agenda of the left. This is the agenda of the left. And this is where they're coming against the church, where the church that believes in life does not believe in abortion. Well, one of the things that we've seen is how the liberals were trying to take away pregnancy centers that don't have abortion options. And so it's known that if a woman receives an ultrasound during her pregnancy, the chances of her getting an abortion go way down. So they don't want options that are not an abortion option, where a woman could see the actual baby in her womb moving and realize that it's not just her body, it's another body inside of her body, another person inside of her person, that God has given her this miraculous opportunity to carry a baby. And if you've ever witnessed and been a part of when your significant other is carrying a baby, you watch, and it's a beautiful thing, and you see the love and the bond even before the baby arrives. Now, people try to minimize all of those things today as though it's just a fetus and it's women's rights. They try to dress it up and camouflage it with fancy words to make it sound like it's something that it's not, the pure evil that it actually is. But we need to recognize this and know that this is the agenda. They don't even want pregnancy centers that don't have that option. They were trying to shut that down. And now, one of the things that is on the agenda that could possibly come if a liberal government gets in is they want to take away charitable status from any religious advancing organization in Canada, which would be churches, which, that's not just Pentecostal churches, that's Catholic churches, or maybe even Muslims, different people that have that viewpoint, are just advancing religion, right? So, but what is the underlying thing there is they want to take away charitable status from anybody that does not believe in abortion, that is not in alignment with their agenda. What this could mean is that many churches across Canada have to close up their doors. Because one of the things that I've heard about this is that they could all of a sudden have to pay the amount that their building is worth, the amount of money that they have in the bank. They might have to pay off of that. And so many churches are immediately put in a place where they can't afford this and have to close up. Not to mention the fact that a lot of people just aren't going to probably give. I don't believe that for our church at all. And know that many churches will continue to give and hopefully even give more, just as a slap in the face to the devil. But that as you can't receive a tax receipt anymore for giving to your church. And what happens is all of a sudden, all these churches that have been doing all this charitable work and helping people, feeding people, all of these things, all of a sudden, poof, all of that's gone away. And so this is one of the things that is being threatened that churches really need to recognize and know that, I can't vote for a party that is a party of death. But also we see that under the Liberal Party has been the strong push for LGBT and trans, or LGBT as in the T trans. And so not only as talking about it or accepting of it, but strongly pushing it and saying you have to accept this belief. You're not allowed to counsel people that are struggling with some of these issues and want to get counseling about it so that they can learn how, they try to restrict all of that and just push it on children. And so these are some of the people, Christians, you're partnering with. Is that what you want to do? Really? You're partnering with this ideology that has been robbing children of their innocence and of their safety, where there's mutilations going on and all of these things that are happening in children. Terrible, terrible things. Elon Musk has talked about this for his own son and said how this treatment basically killed his son. That's what it did. It's horrible. And we see Christians just willing to partner with this. Why? Well, what the enemy does is he tries to get us in these little demographics, right? Well, I'm this color, and so I have to vote for that party because that's the party that favors white people, black people, native people, whatever. But as kingdom people, as Christians, we have to look beyond this. We have to think, what is God's perspective? What is a kingdom perspective? What does God want? How should a Christian vote? And it's not just about our feelings and what will just make things a little bit better for us. Of course, we can have a conversation about those things, but we need to think about what are the most important things, like abortion, life, like rights being taken away, freedom of speech that is being challenged. And this is, I think, the greatest threat, one of the most important things, the most important thing I'll easily say for this upcoming election is we must be on the side of freedom of speech. We need this as a Christian people, as believers, and for every Canadian, where you are free to express your train of thought, your point of views, where you can share your opinion on things without fear of retaliation, being censored, being shut down. And so we don't ever want to be in a place where we see things happening like are happening in the UK.
Now, the Labour-ran Rushmore Borough Council has sparked outrage by proposing a sweeping injunction that could see Christian street preachers imprisoned for up to 2 years if the injunction is breached, now over claims of causing offence or distress. Now, under the proposed terms, Christians will be banned from praying for individuals, handing out religious leaflets or Bibles by hand, and laying hands on people in prayer, even with their permission.
Even with their permission. Where's that happening? That's happening in the UK. Christian preachers preaching on the street, talking to people about Jesus, praying for people, laying hands on people, even if they give you their permission, you could go to jail for years. This is some of the things that are happening in the world. And so freedom of speech is the biggest thing on the menu right now that we need to fight for and vote for. And like I already said, not everybody in the Conservative Party is pro-life, but there is people in there that are pro-life. We got to be able to see that and recognize that. I've personally been able to meet some of them, talk with them, and they're good people that are fighting for right things. And so that's a party right now that at least there can be representatives who are bringing that argument to the table, and where freedom of speech will be fought for, where at least we as the church, if we aren't changing abortion yet, at least we can still make our voices known, just to be able to say, this is wrong. We don't believe this. We don't do this. We're Christians. We value life. We cherish life. And so if we lose the right to be able to start saying that, then we are living under heavy communism and a tyrannical government. And we don't want to see things come to that. And this is where things could be going. But I will even add on for an economic argument that, we've seen Carney scrap the carbon tax that the liberals brought in and that the liberals cherished, and they've defended and says, oh, yeah, putting more money in 8 or 9 out of 10 Canadians' pockets anyway. And it's really just only hurting the elite. Well, it was hurting everybody at the pumps and those paying for it on their heating bills, and the different places that products were affected as well. And so all of a sudden, a new face, what does he do? He scraps the carbon tax. Why did he scrap the carbon tax? Because it was what the Conservatives was one of their main points for their election, and he just wanted to take that away. It's a political move. and Carney's tried to copy Pierre Poilievre on many different things already. It's really quite ridiculous. But all of us, what happened to all the liberals who championed, this environmental salvation? Oh, the carbon tax, taking more money out of people's pockets is somehow saving the environment. Well, and now all of a sudden, I don't hear people upset. How come liberals aren't upset? Oh no, you're working against the environment. How come that's not happening? And do we really trust that what they do after they've brought this in themselves, championed it? Even Carney himself was a supporter of the carbon tax. Now they've scrapped it, but what comes after the election? We can't be so gullible to just buy all of this during an election time and know that the Liberal Party, Carney is a net zero guy where they're going to do radical things that could hurt our economy. One of the things that the conservatives want to do is pipelines. What can this do for Canada? This can make us more independent, where Trump doesn't have as heavy hand against us, where we are able to transport and sell to other countries, sell to Europe. It's not so easy right now to do that because we don't have the infrastructure for it. And so we need the US that much desperately. And I hope our partnership with the US always stands strong, because I think it's great. And it's, they're our neighbor. To me, we're just separated by a border, that, and, you talk to people, they're the same as us, whatever. To me, those are our neighbors. But at the same time, if there's going to be this war on trade and we have to look for other options, we need somebody who's thinking outside the box, or looking at least bigger picture, where we can't just shut down fossil fuels. That's going to destroy our economy. I'm all for finding things that are more environmentally friendly, but we need to advance at a proper pace. And a lot of the argument isn't about environment. It's actually about power and money grabs. And if you don't see that, man, you're really not paying attention. A lot of these things that are being done aren't about saving the environment. They're about taking power. And as we advance over the next years, you're going to see more and more of that. People's rights being taken away under the names of these things, saving the environment or shutting down hate speech. We need freedom of speech, freedom of expression. And so I said this to my church, and I'll say this as I get ready to close. Last election cycle, federal election, I did not vote for the Conservative Party. I was so disturbed or upset at the way that they had handled 2020 and all that went on, all the losses of freedoms and restrictions that came in. And then on top of that, they had a candidate who I just thought was terrible, and just looked like a red liberal in blue clothing. And that's been their MO though lately, is that's what they try to be. They don't want to speak for the people. But one thing we know for sure, it's fact that it's going to one party or the other. And God forbid that the New Democrats ever get in there, because that would just be horrible on so many levels. But I'm not even going to waste time talking about that tonight. It's going to be a liberal government or a conservative government. Now, if you tell me as a Christian you can't vote conservative, you're voting PPC, you're voting, for Christian Heritage Party, or you're just, and I'm not even sure if they're on the federal election, but that, or maybe you just want to protest and not vote for anybody. You want to just leave a blank ballot, which you can do as a protest, and apparently those actually get counted, and so that's something that is actually paid attention to. So that is an option as well. But we got to recognize that we are at a critical moment. Like, we don't have decades to turn this ship, and so I'm without a doubt voting conservative. Thank God in our area, our local representative is pro-life. And so I'm appreciative for that. But we got to see the bigger picture here. I know a lot of Christians were upset at Pierre saying that. I've seen some of it in my own feed. I'm upset about that. I don't like that. And those are things that we need to continue to challenge, and those are things that we need to continue to pray for, and pray for him for, if he ever gets in office. That we're not going to be afraid to say that we don't like that. Like, just because we're on that side and we're voting for you, we're not going to act like this is okay. We need to be able to call things as they are, And because we're not just political people, we're kingdom people. That's where our values are coming from. We're not just siding with a party, we're siding with the kingdom. And so we're looking at this and saying, what aligns with the kingdom values, with my King, Jesus Christ, who I love? What will bring life to Canada, healing to Canada? And so we got to recognize it's going to be one of these two parties. And the Liberal Party, they are oppressors of freedom of speech. They do not even allow representatives to be pro-life people, so no chance of an argument even coming up there. At least their argument can be, present in a conservative government. And so we need to defend freedom of speech where we can at least say, hey, we're Christians, we don't believe this. Or even if you're not, whether you're Muslim, Christian, or Hindu, whatever, where you can say the things that you believe and express your viewpoints without fear of retaliation or censorship. And so that's all I have to say tonight. God bless you guys. If you don't know Jesus, pray this prayer with me, for there's never been a greater moment than right now to receive Jesus Christ as your Lord. And so pray, Lord Jesus, come into my heart. Forgive me for all my sins. I declare today that you are the Lord of my life, in Jesus' name. Have a good night, everybody.